all of the patterns, all playing the same notes, the same A, C, D, E, G notes.
Let's start with the truth that a lot of players seem to miss. The pentatonic scale is just 5 notes. That's it. Not 20, not 50 patterns, just 5 notes. But here's the problem. A lot of them get lost in the shapes, patterns, and fingerings, and they never really get to see the scale for what it is. By the end of this lesson, you're going to be able to use the scale to solo anywhere on your fretboard. Let's take the A minor pentatonic as an example. The 5 notes are A, C, D, E, and G. And generally, when guitar players first learn this scale, they learn this whole pattern right here that covers all 6 of the strings. But it's those 5 notes just the same. Anytime you're playing the A minor pentatonic scale, you're only playing within those 5 notes. That's it, full stop. Now here's where things get interesting. Guitarists have actually mapped out the pentatonic scale in multiple positions and multiple octaves across the fretboard. And one of the systems that really helps spell this out is what's known as the caged system. Caged represents 5 chord shapes or forms, right? C chord, A chord, G chord, E chord, D chord. And each of those shapes, right, C, A, G, E, D, are actually movable. The shapes are movable, right? So we can actually adapt them to different positions in the order of the word caged. That's where it gets its name, right? It essentially lays out all 5 of those notes in those new positions. Let me show you. We're going to stick to the key of A minor, or C as its relative major, right? And starting with the C pattern, it goes like this. It's called the C pattern because it fulfills a C chord shape. Next up, we have the A pattern, which fulfills an A chord shape. And then next up, we just covered this one. This is the G pattern because it fulfills a G chord shape. And then next up, we have the E pattern because it follows an E chord shape. And it goes like this. And then we keep it going. We got the D pattern right over here, which fulfills the D chord shape, right? Right here. And that's it. That's caged. That's C, A, G, E, D, caged. All of the patterns, all playing the same notes, the same A, C, D, E, G notes, right? And once we get here to the 12th fret, we can just keep it moving and just keep going, right? We start over with the, in the new octave with the C pattern. The A pattern, G pattern, and then at that point I just run out of frets, right? So that's more than enough ground. That's pretty much your entire fretboard, but it's still the same 5 notes, guys. And whether you're playing in the key of A minor or in the key of C major, like I said, they're relatives of each other. The notes are the same. They're going to be in key. What's going to shift is the change in the tonal center and kind of the sound, right? Is it going to sound minor, where it's a little bit sad, more serious, or is it going to sound major, a little more bright and happy? That really depends on the context, right, of what you're doing. But just playing through that, right, that covers essentially both of those keys, we could say, the key of C or the key of A minor. So if you've ever seen all those cage patterns or all those different pentatonic positions and thought they were different scales, they're not. It's the same scale played multiple times in multiple places. It's really that simple. You can think of it like typing the same word in different fonts, right? The word's the same, so the meaning is the same, but the fonts make it a little bit different every time. By the way, if you're getting value out of this lesson, do me a favor, hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. Okay, now you understand that the pentatonic scale is just 5 notes. And you understand that the cage system is just different ways of seeing those 5 notes. But the real magic is learning how to connect the dots when you're soloing. That's not just a mechanical walking up and down the scale, because that's exercising. That's not being musical. We want to be musical with these scales. After all, they are tools for making music. So I'm going to put on a simple loop. It's a C chord that walks down to an A minor chord and back. Real simple, just to show you how everything that we're going to be playing, all 5 of those notes occurring in multiple places, right, are going to be in key. They're going to work over the C chord and they'll work over the A minor chord because they are relatives of each other, as I mentioned, right? And you're going to hear that tonal center shift. But here we go. Turning that loop on. Starting with the C chord. And then you'll hear a walk down to an A minor chord, okay? So once the loop starts over, I'm going to begin playing. I'll start in the C pattern, just walk my way up. sound shifted there. Went to minor and then back to major. When you hear me play over the C chord, it's going to sound brighter and happier and major, right? And then when it changes to the A minor chord, you're going to hear that more serious, somber tone. Let's keep it moving. And it's really cool how this same scale will shift in how it sounds and the vibes it gives you just from the chords that you're playing it over. Now just walking back. So just to walk through what just happened there, right? I just started off in each pattern, just kept it casual. I wasn't trying to be flashy or do anything fancy. I was trying to be musical though. So what I was doing was I wasn't necessarily walking up and down the scale in a mechanical way, right? I would just kind of pick a note, start there, maybe a root note, and anticipating that the change in that tonal center, going from that happy major sound to that more emotional minor sound. And even though you could play the same notes, you'll notice the shift, but certain notes will kind of pop out a little bit more than others depending on the chord that you're playing. And this is where experimentation is the best way to go. So that's what I was doing. And I was just walking up a little bit on one pattern, moving my way up to another. And then, like I said, just casually kind of strolling through. So let's talk about how to actually do that, okay? If you learn a pattern, okay, let's say you're in the C pattern and you want to move from the C pattern to just right next door to the A pattern, okay? And you're starting here, you know. Right? And then you're like, okay, I played just a little riff like that, right? Then you're like, okay, how do I move on to the A pattern? Well, check this out. Where I landed right here, it's right within the A pattern, right? Right, that note right there is right within it. So now that I'm here, I can just kind of like slide into another note that's in that pattern. And then I could, let's say, do some more walking up the pattern. And then let's say this is my stopping point here, right? And I want to move from here to the G pattern. Notice how right now I'm within the G pattern, right? Because these are all connected, right? They're like puzzle pieces. So right here, and especially between the A pattern and the G pattern, you'll notice they're connected by this one fret, right? All 6 strings on one fret. John Mayer calls it the pentatonic equator. And it's really useful to remember, especially if you just, let's say, want to go between the A and the G pattern, right? And then from there, you just move on into the next pattern and slide to the next note, which I recommend looking where you want to land, right? And then move into it. You don't want to just go for it because you may not stick the landing. So it's important to like just take a beat to like look where you want to land into that next pattern and then do it. And that same thing applies if you want to skip patterns. If let's say I wanted to go from here all the way to the D pattern, skipping the E pattern, I want to do the same thing, right? So let's say it's on the same string here. It's a big jump. So what I had to do was play that note, visualize where I wanted to land, and then slide on up. And you don't have to slide, but obviously we got to make that move over there. And let's say I wanted to move from here back down to the C pattern, a huge jump. Same rule applies, right? I want to move from here to, let's say, the 2nd fret on the G string. Like, okay, here I am. I'm gonna look over there, and then boom. That's a nice sound too, it could actually prove useful, when I'm actually soloing. So when you're moving between the caged patterns, it doesn't have to be play the whole thing all the way up and then move on to the next one. That's only for when you're exercising them and trying to memorize and get them under your fingers. If you've taken my lessons before, you may have seen that I advocate for when you learn a new pattern, right? Especially a big 6-string pattern like each of these cage patterns, to really get to know them, how to use them musically. Break them up into chunks. So like 2-string blocks at a time within each pattern, just to get comfortable and familiar and creating musical ideas, to really break the habit or not fall into the habit of just mechanically walking up and down the scale. And this is how you move from being a box player to an actual soloist. Now, if you're starting to see how freeing this stuff can be, wait till you take that next step. Because once you understand the pentatonic scale is just 5 notes, you can take those same 5 notes and adapt them to any key, literally anywhere on the neck. And that's exactly what we break down in this lesson right here. How to instantly solo in any key. It is a game changer if you've ever felt stuck, confused, or lost playing the same old licks. And it builds directly on everything that you have learned here in this video. So here's what to do. You click here to claim your free copy, or if you're watching this on TV, scan that QR code, or check the link that I left for you in the description box to this video. Go through it and you'll see how that system gives you complete freedom on soloing anywhere on the fretboard in any key without second guessing. And once you get that down, the fretboard stops feeling like a puzzle and starts feeling like home.